네, 노래가 나가는 사이에 정말 잘 기억은 나지 않지만 생각해 보니까 우리 서로 이쪽 업계에서 이렇게 만나 뵙고 그리고 또 여러 개의 쇼도 같이 하고 이랬던 것들이 다 떠오르네요.
그럼요.
네, 보니까 20몇 년이라 네. I actually don't want to remember the fact that I have quite a career that goes over 10 years.
Why wouldn't you?
Because I always thought that I have been working in this field for maybe 5-6 years because of my age.
Oh,
I
come
just don't
on.
want to be reminded that I graduated from university back in things like that. But you know, it's a considerably long period of time. But you know, just to flash back in just a few seconds is not enough. But from your point of view, what do you think? Do you see a lot of changes? You know, in the, I don't know, maybe in the broadcasting sector, especially for English educational purposes. Do you see a big difference from when you started and now where it is right now?
Basically, your question actually is two-pronged. One
Mhm.
is broadcasting, which
Yes.
is something that I'm not quite knowledgeable about. I'm an avid listener and then viewer of EBS programs myself. I really enjoy watching them. And I've witnessed quite a few changes actually, of course, in the format and the people. Now we have Kim Shi on EBS TV, which was quite a really pleasant surprise. I've always been a huge fan of his myself, and then wow, it was quite a change, I have to mention. But other than that, English education, that's another thing. Well, of course, we're witnessing a huge change, especially in terms of scientific advancement. We have the high-tech, the technology is deeply involved, and now we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution,
Yes.
which is something that I'm not so clear about yet. And another thing is AI, so what to do with AI, the technology, and how to utilize it for the benefit of the English education and the learners and the teachers as well. But one thing that doesn't really, actually one most outstanding change that I have witnessed is that the major shift of people's concept. And it's definitely moving towards the direction where now communication is the key. So far, until a few years ago, we have been mostly focused on, how to get the high score in Korean SAT, and
Yes.
English was regarded as one of those school subjects. Even no matter how hard we try to, strongly emphasize that English can be fun and it's so worthwhile, like learning experience. But what it comes down to is, okay, how to get the the better score in all kinds of tests actually. But now we are getting over that stage to realize that, okay, now this is a tool to use, which is the basic sort of idea to start with, I believe. And people are so seriously discussing how to make it happen in English classrooms. The teachers have to change and the books have to change, but the learners have to change too in their learning attitude, their learning sort of style and their commitment. Yes, I think that's the major shift that I've witnessed so far.
네. 예전에는 정말 점수 따기에만
그쵸.
있었잖아요. 영어 교육이라는 것이. 물론 말로는 영어를 잘하고 싶다라고 하지만 실제로는 괄호 열고 시험 점수를 잘 받고 싶다. 그랬었기 때문에 아마
당연하죠.
접근하는 방법이 많이 달랐을 거라고 생각해요. 그런데 시험 점수에만 집중하는 것도 물론 좋지만 거기에서 가장 큰 폐해는 점수가 좋아도 영어를 잘한다라고 자신 있게 얘기할 수 있는 사람이 별로 없었다는 거. 그런 면이 아마 영어 교육을 하시는 분들 입장에서는 영어를 잘하게 만들기 위해서 계속되는 고민이 아니었나 이런 생각이 드는데 그래도 옛날보다는 지금 우리가 영어라는 것을 꼭 시험 점수에만 집중할 필요가 없구나. 다른 분야로서 우리가 영어가 많이 필요하구나라는 그런 변화가 이제 가장 보이는 제일 눈에 띄게 보이는 그런 변화라고 설명을 해주셨습니다. 저도 거기에는 I totally agree to that part because people ask me if I speak good English. I say, well, I can express myself, but it's not perfect English. I don't speak perfect Korean. I don't speak perfect English. I make a lot of mistakes, but I still have the to come up on air and just
That's right.
and I can just talk as whatever I want. That's the
낯짝이란
part.
말이 좀 그런데.
자, 그러면 이렇게 영어 교육의 변화가 있고 아마 그 방송 트렌드의 변화는 브라이언 리 선생님이 많이 아실 것 같아요. Because 네, 다른 우리가 방송국에서 시작을 하셨고 거기서 이제 사실 스타 강사셨죠.
그렇죠.
네,
그럼요.
잘생긴 외모에 막 그 언변 이런
스튜디오에
걸로
딱 들어왔는데 어떻게 잘생긴
네.
남자가 하나 앉아있는데
그렇죠.
얼마나
키도
놀랐는지.
크시고 네, 그래서 제가 다른 방송국에서 봤을 때 이렇게 약간 넘사벽이었어요. 말도 함부로
오,
할 수 없는
어머,
정도의
어머,
그런
어머.
스타셨고 그리고 지금도 다른 방송국들에
It's all lies.
Brian,
Lies.
you should write it in your diary tonight.
근데 이제
They say I was
그때
good looking today.
remember it was just one broadcasting company
Yeah.
and then it moved over to EBS and then we have some other channels that speak in English too. Do you see a trend change? And do you think do you see how it has changed? Because English programs were very new when you first started here in Korea.
Yeah. So I've seen quite a bit of change in the past almost 20 years now. And I think it goes in similar trends to the changing styles of the education as well. But just as an example, when I first started at EBS and we were in the live studio back in the Umyeonsan,
Yes.
the building there, and this is how long ago it was. When we would do these, occasionally we would do these little inserts where we would act out parts of a movie or parts
Yeah.
of a story or something. And there would be an actual guy who did the sound effects behind the curtain. There's a big velvet
He
curtain
was
in the back
such a
of the studio.
gentleman, yes.
Yeah, and he had all these props like shoes and hammers and bells and bottles and stuff. And so as we would act out these things, if someone was walking, you would have these two shoes that you would clack against the board. That's how long ago it is. We had reel-to-reel radio. So if you made a mistake, we couldn't edit anything. We had to start over from the beginning, run the reel back. So just from a technical standpoint, it was very different. But when I first came here, I was used to watching and listening to people like Howard Stern on the radio and David Letterman,
Yes.
who were very much, they were considered kind of rebels, they were very irreverent, they would do stuff that was very edgy on air. And that's what I really enjoyed. So when I first came to Korea and started broadcasting, I would get into trouble so often. I would get into trouble so much, and it's changed a lot. That aspect, especially in the English broadcasting industry, the few stations that did English education were very, very conservative, even amongst the broadcasting in Korea.
Conservative too, if I may, very much highly structured.
Yeah.
Everything was really highly structured.
Yeah, and I was used to doing things, just everything was ad lib, and I would make all these off-color jokes and say things that I shouldn't be saying, and so I would get in trouble a lot. But these days, I have become very tame compared to how the industry has changed.
Yeah.
And now, since we have moved beyond just regular terrestrial radio, we have things on the internet, podcasts, and people doing shows on YouTube, et cetera, and so it's become even less regulated. So in some ways that's good, in some ways it's bad. It drives creativity, and people are able to do more of what they want, but it also decentralizes things, and there's no really oversight to the quality of what's being put out in many of those forms. But I would say overall, though, I think it's been great because, like EBY mentioned, the focus has gone from just tests, which people do focus a lot on tests still.
Yes.
But this is something that ever since I first came here that I was always telling people about. If you want to learn a language, if you want to speak English well, I would always say, forget about these tests. The easiest way to learn is incorporate learning into something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And if it's fun, and that's why I loved Morning Special, was because it was always fun. And because it was fun, people would listen. So as you're listening, eventually you'd be bound to learn. And that's the easiest way to learn.
Yes. I remember back then too, like you're talking about like conservative broadcasting companies. Yeah, they were because it was new, they were very cautious about like each words we used and the phrases that we would use. And for that reason, a lot of people thought that, that's 너무 재미없어. That's so 촌스러워, because we had to go with the basic stuff.
Yeah.
But we had people like Brian who actually, vented out those troubles that you were talking about, and when those things got you into trouble, well, it gave a lot of people freedom and they thought, yeah, that's real English.
Well,
And,
One thing I found is that early on, not so much here at EBS, but other broadcasting stations, a lot of the people in the production team, their English wasn't as good.
yes.
And so I got away with saying a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been saying, which was great for me. But then later we would, I did a regular program, a radio program.
Are you making a
for a long
confession
time.
on
Well,
radio?
people know
So many
this,
years.
but it was a 2-hour show, and so I would talk a lot,
Mhm.
and I was the only host of the show. Surely you'd be like,
Can you imagine?
You'd be like,
I
"Calm
got so
down."
old. Actually, to be honest, Brian was the easiest person to work with. And I've had my fair share of difficulties trying to handle the quality in terms of language and the content, social context and everything during the show, because live.
Yeah.
And there were some really mischievous people who would just throw out things like randomly just to, put me in big trouble. They just love to see me, getting so puzzled of what to say and how to handle the situation. And then we're all very good friends.
Yeah.
And then I used to be in big trouble actually trying to figure out, okay, what are we talking about? Is it baseball or is it
Right,
basketball or is
explain
it soccer? But the topics actually, I am not quite knowledgeable, or I'm not very friendly with sports myself. But people, especially men, they love to talk about sports, right?
Mhm.
So whenever I had more than just one or two the co-hosts or guest speakers in the studio, and I was the one who had to keep everything under control, sort of, and then they were
she
talking
was
about.
the adult in the room.
No, they were talking about all these different topics of about what sports,
Mhm.
and then I had no idea where we were, and then I had to make sure that okay, are we still talking about that same baseball player, just like now?
Yeah.
And then that was the biggest challenge, I think. But again, Brian was the easiest person to work with.
Yeah. Well, he explained things well, so I think whenever you ask, he will give an explanation.
He's a native speaker of English, of
Yes.
course, but I remember I had to keep asking him, okay, what's your secret to your wonderful English? He has such a vast vocabulary, and his expressions, the expressions
Yeah.
that he uses, it was just amazing. I could just write them down. I still have those notebooks. I
Mhm.
have tons of notebooks filled with all these expressions that I wrote down during the show. So every episode was a learning experience for me, and then I could learn so much from Brian. So I had to bother him so much with these questions. How come your English is so good? And he says, I'm a native speaker. Of course my English is good. No. You must have done something really special. And then he said, oh, I wasn't really. I read a lot. I wrote a lot when I was little.
I watched a lot of TV.
Okay, there you go.
I watched public
David
TV.
Letterman, David
Um,
Letterman,
yeah.
Ron Stern.
And this is another thing, I don't want this to be us just complimenting each other the whole time, but one of the things that EBY, it struck me because she was always really curious, and she was a lifelong student, really.
Mhm.
And so here she was, and especially at that time, she's like superstar in the English in the
Yes.
English field, literally superstar. I mean, people would roll out the red carpet and hold her veil as she walked by, and she was the top.
Yes.
And just the fact that she would be in the studio, and while we're broadcasting, she's taking notes, she's asking questions. About certain expressions. How do you use this, or how do you differentiate between these certain situations? Just everything. And it really, I learned so much about teaching, because I really didn't know anything about teaching at that point. I learned a lot about teaching, and I just really gained the utmost respect for EBY SEM. So whenever people ask me about, well, who do you think is a good teacher? She's the first person I always mention. I swear this is true.
Yeah.
This is not just talking because she's
Right,
sitting
I
in
don't
front of
really
me.
deserve that, but thank
No.
you so
Well,
much.
I
It
I
means
think
so
a
much
lot
to
of
me.
people have to agree with you, because one of the secrets of success of Morning Special was the fact that it was not really a teacher just teaching the students, but she was, as she said, from a student's point of view. So she could really relate to all the listeners, who are eager
Yeah.
to learn more about those English expressions, and also about other fun things in life.
Yeah, and what I came to see after working a while in the English broadcasting industry is I realized that there are teachers who were famous and well known, but were, to me, more business people.
Yes.
And then there were teachers who were genuine teachers. And that to me was, EBY was really a teacher's teacher, a real educator. Of course, she also did well with her businesses, but there were some teachers that I didn't really respect as much just because I knew that their thing was selling books, getting people signed up for their classes, whatever. And to me, I wasn't impressed by that. Yeah, but EBY always impressed me.
I want to sell books too.
Yeah,
I
well,
just
you
don't know how
should.
to.
자, 이렇게 아마 한 프로그램이 20년 넘게, 이게 25년, 26년 이렇게 사랑받을 수 있는 이유에는 정말 여러 가지 성공 요인들이 있지만 아마 저는 그냥 청취자 입장에서만 들어왔다가 오늘 이야기를 들어보니까 이런 노력들과 이런 요소들이 있었기 때문에 프로그램이 이렇게 쭉 계속해 나가지 않았을까라고 하면서 이상한 무게감을 이 등 뒤에서 뭔가 느끼게 되고
피로가 있어서 피로가
됩니다. 자, 그러면 많은 분들께서 아마 진작에 궁금해하셨을 것 같은데요. 그러면 모닝 스페셜을 이렇게 호련히, 무심히 떠나신 선생님께서는 그 이후에 다른 활발한 활동도 계속하고 계시지만, so what have you been doing after you left the show? And what's keeping you busy these days? Apart from your 200th book.
She's been writing hundreds of books.
No, 200 is a little bit exaggerated, but like I said, I've always been in the business of English education. I have been a teacher trainer, both for private sector and public sector. And also, what have I done? Recently, I've opened my YouTube channel, which is Misoa EBY. Misoa is my company's name. I actually had to pay for this name. But anyway, that's another thing. And podcast is another thing. Usually my book goes with podcast audio material, which used to be, the cassette tape, like long time ago, but nowadays it's this podcast. And other than that, I have been working on some English educational program development projects. And that's, those things other than, raising up kids. And now they're not fully grown up, but they're big kids right now. And then while I was doing the morning special, one day I looked around and my kid, my oldest kid actually, she just got into the elementary school, and the next minute she just graduated from the elementary school. So time flew by so fast.
네. 계속해서 이쪽에서 활발히 활동을 하고 계시고 뭐 책뿐만이 아니라 보니까 이제 본인만의 그런 채널을 통해서 또 많은 분들과 만나고 있는 그런 활동을 지금 펼치고 계십니다. And apart from Power English, Brian, what's keeping you busy?
Well, I've done all kinds of stuff. Right now, what's keeping me busy is not too much, actually, to be honest with you.
So focused.
Yes, focused absolutely on Power English. But I've actually, after quite a while of not doing it, I've been teaching at a Hagwon lately. And it's been good. I think another change that is happening is that I can actually do a class where it's fairly advanced and we just talk. We just have conversations every class. And then I've been enjoying doing that since I hadn't taught in Hagwons for a while. But I also do a little bit of part-time work. I work with some UFC fighters. I manage a couple of fighters and do just some other random things.
Wow, you manage UFC fighters?
Yeah. And
So you have hold of, you're keeping your hands on all those big bulky guys?
I don't literally keep my hands on. Well, sometimes I do. But I've been working with fighters about 9-10 years now. 9 or 10 years now I've been doing this.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's completely different. Occasionally you can see me on cable after the fights, absolutely mangling the interviews. And I always think, geez, I wish I could borrow Taehyun's brain for this part. Because doing Korean to English is okay, but the opposite is terrible for me. And so these Korean netizens are always like putting up all this nasty good about my oyuk. But yeah, I've just been doing that, and over the years, I've done all sorts of different broadcasting and did some movies and plays and all sorts of different things.
That's right. You are on 괴물.
Yeah, yes, I was.
Yes.
Really?
Oh yes.
Oh yes, I remember. 괴물 is 벌써 몇 년 된 영화예요.
The host?
Yes, the host.
The host.
Yes.
Actually, I was watching the movie in the States with my family, and his face actually filled the whole screen. And
Yeah, it was huge.
I know that guy.
He's a movie star.
He is a movie star.
No.
자, 벌써 시간이 이렇게 됐습니다. 모닝데이트 정말 시간이 너무 빨리 흘러가는데요. 아마 마지막 질문으로 제가 짧게 두 분께 부탁드릴 거는 of course, all those listeners listening to our show, they thrive to improve their English skills. So if you have a small tip for them, like, 이런 자세로 방송을 들으시거나 뭐 어떻게 하면 좀 도움이 되실 거다. If you have a tip, would you like to share anything with us?
Please don't get me started on this. I mean, 2 hours is never long enough for me. But anyway,
I know. Just a
like,
short tip. A short tip.
this kind of program, I don't really think that you could open up your mouth and then make you talk. It gives you all kinds of different ideas with which you could have a wonderful conversation with people that you actually, interact with. So you could get some tips as to how to interact with people like successfully and effectively, but try to get engaged. Try to get involved in the show in a very nice way, friendly way. You were talking about 댓글, and I was really lucky enough to have wonderful, like very supportive, nice, big-hearted supporters, fans out there. They're always so nice. Whenever I make mistakes, huge mistakes during the show, and they were never really that hostile in correcting my mistakes. And I was always like, okay, this is my mistake, and I really apologize, and I try to correct my mistakes as soon as possible. So try to be supportive of each other, learners basically, and try to get some tips from one another, and then step by step, you can eventually get to your goal, whatever that is.
Oh, thank you. And Brian, what tip can you give?
Yeah, I think just beyond sort of broadcasting, but just in general, if you're trying to improve your English, again, communication is the most important thing. And so when you go out, just try. Make mistakes. Don't worry about making mistakes. You can't learn unless you make mistakes. It's not possible. Anything that you do. So don't be afraid of making mistakes, of being corrected. Just think of in Korea, when we hear foreigners speaking Korean, and we're always impressed at how the things that they know, and we don't correct their grammar, we don't correct their pronunciation. We just say, hey, you're doing great. It's amazing how well you're doing. Think of it that way. So when native English speakers are listening to you, they're probably thinking the same thing. So don't worry about making mistakes. Just try.
네. 아마 두 분 다 선생님께서 해주시는 이야기들이 you have to make a connection. 일단 입을 열어라. 그래서 뭐 communicate하고 이런 프로그램들을 들으시면서 여러 가지 팁을 얻으신 다음에 실생활에 나가서 한번 그것을 실험을 해봐야겠죠. 물론 미스테이크도 많이 만들고 이러면서 그래야 영어가 늘 수 있다는 이야기를 아마 모든 선생님들께서 동의하시지 않을까 싶습니다. 자, 시간이 이렇게 돼서 모닝데이트 이제 서서히 문을 닫아야 할 것 같은데요. 일단 저희가 아까 내드린 그 퀴즈의 정답을 궁금해하시는 분들이 많으실 것 같아요. So, 이번 선생님, would you like to please give us the answer to the quiz question?
Okay, the question was once again a person or a thing that is well known by the public and referred to as number 1, household name. Congratulations.
1번은 household name이었습니다. Now, what is a house chore?
House chore is just things that you do around the house, cleaning up, cooking, putting things away.
너무 신기해요. 이렇게 자동 뭐
나만
물어보기만 하면
Everyone knows what a house chore is. Come on.
아무튼 신기한 이렇게 사람의 재주 구경하는 게 너무 제일 재밌어요.
맞아요.
정말 뛰어난 재능이신 것 같습니다. 자, 정답은 1번 하우스홀드였고요. 정답 맞춰주신 분들 중 저희가 몇 분을 추첨해서 이보영 선생님의 최근 출간된 영문법 100일의 기적을 네, 보내드리도록 하겠습니다.
감사합니다.
네, 이렇게 함께해 주신 두 분께 정말 감사의 인사를 드려야겠고요. Thank you very much, and we will be cheering both of yours future. And everything you do.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for coming here to the studio today and sharing those wonderful memories with us.
Thank you
so
for
much for
having
having
us.
us.
선생님들을 계속 응원하면서 오늘 여기서 모닝데이트 접도록 하겠습니다. 자, 마지막 곡 띄워드릴게요. This is UB40 Red Red Wine.